All right, class, how you doing today? Um, so, just as reminders, right now we are, as of today, which is Thursday, first week. Uh, Later today, we should have the schedule set up on WC Online for you to start making appointments with myself and with our tutors, Sasha and Pierre. You will need to meet with me once per week. You will need to meet with the tutors once per week through WC Online. You can make your account now, but you can't set up the appointments now because the schedule's not up. But I will get that going hopefully later today. Um, Also, don't forget you are required to do the discussion boards, so make sure that you get your postings onto the discussion boards. Um, Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the concept of genres because we're going to be working within genres the entire term. And the reason we're working with genres is for most of you through your high school career, you were taught something probably along the lines of the five paragraph essay, which is one very, very specific type of writing that you are never going to use ever, 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 ever outside of the academy. And really, once in college, you're not going to use it in college either. Um, it is one type of writing. And what we want to do is, in teaching you about the concept of genres, is get you to be able to understand how genres work, how writing works in different situations, so that you can identify the conventions of any genre and adapt your writing to what needs to be accomplished within a given situation. So, as we talk about genres, a genre is a type of writing that is done, it's a way of categorizing writing. And there's all kinds of different, well, I say writing, but really what we mean is composition. Because as we know anymore, it's not just writing. There's images, there's sound. Um, we work all of these together and blend them together in order to make a composition. And the title of this class isn't writing, it's composition. You're going to learn how to compose. Um, so there's a lot more genres available to you than the five paragraph essay. And let's talk about the five paragraph essay because I'm willing to bet that's what most of you have been taught. And why was that taught to you? Um, Quite frankly, the five paragraph essay was taught to you because it was easy. I don't mean easy for you, I mean easy for the teacher. It's the easiest thing in the world to grade. Um, do you have an introduction? Yes. In your thesis statement, do you have 3 points in your thesis statement? Yes. In the body of your essay, do you have the 3 points that are in your thesis statement? Yes. Do you have a conclusion? Yes. Okay, great. That doesn't even really grade if you're effective at any of those. It's just a plug and play setup that really isn't very useful outside of the classroom. And the fact, but it's taught to you because teachers in high school, they've got, 30 students each in six classes, so 180 students, and they have to grade all these essays. And they're being told by the state the students have to be able to do this thing, this thing, this thing. Okay, well, if I set this really easy to grade thing up, I can see that they did this thing, and this thing, and check it off the list. So we want to move beyond that. We want to move into effective composing as opposed to simply some type of generic plug and play device that really isn't very useful. Um, so genres are going to differ according to how people use them. Um, and genres change. So, for example, there used to be this idea of writing a diary, right? And people would get a book and they'd write their thoughts down in a diary. Now we have blogs and they're digital. Okay, so a lot of the conventions of the genre stay the same, but the genre itself has changed and adapted to the technologies around it. We see this, for example, in comics. Comics used to be printed on paper. Now we have digital comics and web comics, which has completely different capabilities, such as hypertext, or you can link to character backgrounds, things like that, that simply you can't do in a paper and pen comic. So even though you still have the same genre, the genre has evolved according to the medium in which it's created. Um, the other thing is that genres are flexible. Genres don't. We say, for example, well, I'm going to write a persuasive essay, right? Well, maybe in the persuasive essay, you start off by telling a story. Is it a narrative now because you have a story in it? So the idea to try to say, okay, this is an argument and this is a narrative, it doesn't work like that. The fact is, genres combine and recombine all the time. And you're going to be using elements of various ideas all the time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about purpose. We're going to talk about audience, okay, and what you're going to want to accomplish. I'm not giving the essay yet. We're going to do that in our next lecture, okay? So we're just talking about genres right now. So think about the different types of genres that you compose in, because there's this bullshit going around out there that says, well, kids these days don't write, and kids these days don't read. Your generation reads and writes probably more than any generation in history, okay? You're doing it on the phone, just like I'm recording this on my phone, but you're still reading and writing. And it is constant. And understanding the conventions of the genre and what you're doing is crucial to achieving whatever objective you have behind your writing. Okay? So don't let anybody tell you, well, kids these days don't write. You guys write. Oh my God, you write. What needs to happen is people need to, as they're teaching you to write, be able to talk to you about the conventions of the genres that you're actually writing in. A Twitter post, right? Understanding how that conveys meaning and who your audience is, and are you actually achieving what you want to, or are you actually making yourself look pretty bad? How many times have we seen a celebrity make a dumb post that has absolutely wrecked them? It happens all the time because they're not thinking about the conventions of the genre that they work in, what they should and should not say in that environment. So, think, for example, about let's say you've got a band and you're trying to get people to come see your band. Okay, are you going to write an essay and list out all the reasons in this essay as to why your band's good? Or are you going to make a poster and put those up in the area? And so if you're thinking of making a poster is a genre of composition, right? You have text on it. What are you going to highlight on that poster? Okay? Well, you need the band name, you need the time, you need the location, right? Those are all things that need to stand out enough to where people can see it. It needs to be in a color, right, that is going to grab people's attention, or have a scheme or something about it that is interesting. Otherwise, people are going to walk past it. So you have to think about design elements. So you're probably not just going to put blank text, right, in Times New Roman 12-point font. Okay, that's not the convention of the genre of composing for a poster, and it's not going to work to achieve your objective, which is to get people to come and see you. So I'm going to post a link to a video that I want you guys to watch on rhetoric. And I'm going to talk a little bit about rhetoric, but I want you to watch the video as well. Rhetoric refers to the ability to communicate effectively and with a purpose. Communicating effectively and with a purpose means that you have a goal in mind, you have a purpose, you have something that you want to achieve, okay? And then you're doing it in such a manner to where you are actually getting closer to achieving that goal. If I wanted to talk to you about music, right? But I was using very proper language, okay? I'd probably bore people to death. But if I talked with emotion, and if I referred to terminology within that arena as opposed to high scholastic language, I'd probably get more people's attention. So you want to communicate effectively, you want to communicate with a purpose, and you want to, in order to do that, you have to understand what your actual goal is. Because a lot of people, when they set out to communicate, they don't actually consciously slow down and think about what is it I want to achieve here. So slow down. Take a moment before you start to communicate and understand what it is you want to achieve. And in order to be effective, right, you have to understand who you're talking to, who's your audience. You're not going to have a conversation with me using the same language and terminology that you would with your boyfriend or girlfriend, that you would use to talk to your sibling. Even if you were trying to achieve the same goal, you would probably communicate in a different manner. Audience matters. Audience matters. And that is one of the key things to understand when you're talking about rhetoric, is that your audience matters. And your audience is going to change the way in which you attempt to communicate. So think about who your audience is before you sit down to start to compose. Okay? You've got to know who that audience is. You've got to know what's going to matter to them. Not to any random person, but specifically to your audience. So how we do that is by thinking about the rhetorical appeals, okay? The rhetorical triangle. And the rhetorical triangle, again, it's going to get into this more in the video. So if we think of a triangle, a lot of people think 3 points. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? But it's not 3 points. It's 3 lines. Okay? These things are connected. And the 3 points of the triangle that connect these lines are what we call ethos, E-T-H-O-S, pathos, P-A-T-H-O-S, and logos, L-O-G-O-S. And so I want to go over each one of these with you. Ethos is credibility of the author. Who is this person in relationship to the audience to whom they are speaking? So, Barack Obama, right? Barack Obama is going to have a certain ethos with people who are Democrats. He's going to have a certain ethos with people who are members of Greenpeace or the NAACP, right? But if we took him to the Republican National Convention, his ethos changes. If we took him to a meeting of the National Rifle Association, the NRA, the ethos is different. He's the same person, but his ethos, his credibility, his authority, his trustworthiness, right? That all is different because of a different audience. He could go to the Republican National Convention and say everything that they agree with, and they will still doubt him, and they will probably call him out and disagree with him just because of who he is, regardless of what he says. On the other hand, he could probably do the opposite at the Democratic National Convention and say things that they disagree with, but they'd probably try to find a way to justify it because of his ethos. Okay? Pathos, on the other hand, is an appeal to emotion. Okay? As opposed to credibility, pathos is attempting to get people to feel a certain way about something. And politicians do this all the time. And we've seen in the last 4 years a much more pathos-driven political situation than we've seen in a long time. It's not even about facts anymore. It's about how can I get people to feel a certain way. Advertisers do this, for example. Car companies will take a half-naked woman, drape her over a car, and go, hey, look at the car. They won't even tell you anything about the car. Okay? But they try to get men, in this case, to have a certain emotional response to what they're looking at in order to convince them to make a purchase. And finally, we have logos. Okay? And so if we look at the first word, ethos, right, closely related to the word ethics, okay, same root. Pathos, linked to pathetic, which people think of as a bad thing, but it actually just means emotional, okay? And logos closely related to the word logic, and that's really what logos is about. It is logic, connecting facts together, looking at things in a logical and reasoned manner. And so this is things like statistics. This is things like research studies. Now, these things overlap, don't they? Okay? So, for example, if I say 6 out of 7 dentists recommend using clean white toothpaste, okay? Then, clean white toothpaste, that's a thing for your teeth, and 6 out of 7 dentists recommend it. And so that's ethos, because the dentists have ethos, right? Well, but also what they're doing there is they're trying to make you feel confident in this, okay? And they're throwing a statistic at you. So that's using logos. So again, we can't think of ethos, pathos, and logos as disconnected, okay? They're always connected to each other. And if you undo one, usually what's going to happen is the others start to fall apart as well. I had a student who put together a PowerPoint presentation about prayer in schools and about making prayer in schools mandatory. And he used some language that was offensive in the PowerPoint, which what ends up happening then is he uses language that wasn't good. That undermines his ethos, but at the same time, that also affects his audience's pathos. Their emotions start to switch on him, in which case his ethos is gone, his pathos is shaky. They're not even paying attention to the logos. Okay, so realize that we say rhetorical triangle. It's not 3 points. It's 3 interconnected things, and you move one, and the others shift. Now, you're going to have to be doing multimodal compositions in this class. Your projects are going to have a written element, which is just text, and a multimodal element. And we're going to talk about that in the next lecture and what that's going to look like for your first project. So mode is how something is experienced by a reader. So we're going to primarily focus on text-based, visual, and audio. Okay, so images, sound, the text itself, right? How does that look? How does it read? And this can be digital, this can be hard copy, but multimodal. So if we think of a PowerPoint, for example, a PowerPoint is almost intrinsically multimodal, right? You're going to have, unless it's just text on blank white slides, you're going to have that background, okay, of whatever style of slides you use. You're going to incorporate pictures. That's a visual. You might embed a video, another type of visual, still visual, another mode, but still a visual. That movie or that video is going to probably have sound. If it has sound, then that is also going to be an audio form, so another mode. So as you look at conventions, you have to consider what the elements are of the particular genre that you're working in, okay? So what's the style? Is the style of the genre that you're working in funny? Is it whimsical? Is it serious? Because, for example, if you're writing an obituary, okay, typically an obituary, it has certain conventions. It's a fairly solemn thing. You're expected to talk about family that's left. You're expected to talk about what the person did in life. And if you don't, then you need to have that as a choice and explain why you're doing that. One person who died of COVID recently, their obituary was written as an attack on the politics that allowed COVID to spread because they wanted to make a statement. So understanding the generic conventions is very important, because if you break them, people are going to be like, why did you do that? Why are you doing things that aren't a part of this genre? If you're writing a Western, okay, You're writing a story that's a Western. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of your Western, for no apparent reason, you have a page of poetry, and then you go back to just writing a Western. Like, what was that? Why did that appear in the middle of what I was doing? So understand the style, okay? Also think about the design. Um, the design refers to the visual characteristics of a given genre. Now, we think, for example, essays, right? Just something as simple as an essay. Um, if you write your essay in some, like in Comic Sans, and it's in pink, and it's 48 point font, it's not going to come across very good. There's a certain conventions that are expected. We expect a very plain, simple font. We expect it to be about 11 to 12 points in size. Okay, we expect it to be black because for readability purposes. So think about the visual layout. When one of the first PowerPoints that I made when I was learning PowerPoint back before most of you were born, or about that time, my PowerPoint was actually I tried to put text, black text, over a black and white image, and you couldn't even read the text. So think about the design elements of what you're creating. Also think about your sources. Anytime you bring sources into a paper, you need to think about what your audience is going to think of those sources. What's the ethos of your sources with your given audience? If you're bringing some rando from online into your paper, that's not going to stand up very good. Bringing a research professor, right, somebody who has a background in this field, stands up a hell of a lot better. Okay, so some things that you want to consider. Okay, watch the video that I'm going to be posting here. Make sure that you get your discussion boards done. And like I said, I should have the WC Online up and ready to go for you, hopefully today, within the next few hours. All right, have a wonderful day, folks. I will have the next lecture up early next week. Talk to you later. Bye.